Kurt here. The story is 4 years ago. We came here to shoot with our dear friend Ken Block, and we had just a couple hours to spend here. And man, we rushed through that video so fast. That was with David, who's not working here anymore, but that's not a problem because this place is insane.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is so much bigger, I feel like. You guys have so many more cars or trucks.
Yeah, about
since that.
100 in here when everything's in here. Right now we've got a few moved out for the special stuff today, but about 100 vehicles in here at any given time. And you visited the old museum, which was a beautiful building, but this was purpose-built or restored. It used to be a metal foundry, but restored as a museum. So it was kind of built to lay out as a museum, and you can see now it's pretty cool layout.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize you guys moved to a new location. We drove by the old location, and I was like, wait
a second, that's where we're going.
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you guys moved here, but this is absolutely incredible. Was this something like a long, I guess, in the making, or what was?
It was. So this was the vision of the founder, Greg Miller, kind of saw this building and known about this for a few years. I actually came and looked at it with him about 2 years before anything started on the museum front. And I came in here and honestly said, like, I don't see it, Greg. Like, this place is pretty rough. But at the time, there was tractors running in here and forklifts, and they were doing a whole bunch of metal foundry work. He had a vision, and now you look at it and you see it's an amazing place.
So in terms of square footage, it is a lot bigger.
It's actually pretty close to the way the other one is, but the layout kind of works better to have a 70 series wing. There's kind of the newer stuff over in the far side. So it's not, building-wise, it's not terribly bigger, but just the layout works well as a museum.
Right, but the texture and the atmosphere also, I feel like, suits the Land Cruiser a little better.
Look at this ambiance. This is all original old roofing. There's cranes down the middle of the building. This was a working building about 100 years old that was restored. So a lot of great effort went into rebuilding it to make it a museum. Would have been probably less expensive to just build new, but look at how cool it is because of this cool patina it has.
So how many more vehicles do you have now versus before?
Since you visited 4 years ago, I bet we've added 25 to 30 and refined a lot of those too. So as better ones are found, some of those will get sold off and a new, better, cleaner, lower mileage model will replace it in the collection.
Okay, well, let's just start. I mean, there's just so much. I hope you're hydrated and
I'm good.
Ready
I'm ready
to talk.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I know some of these I recognize from last time. A lot of these are new, and a lot of these may be, like you said, different versions.
Yeah.
What is this?
This is a Q Series truck. So this is kind of like a distant relative of the Land Cruiser. So not technically a Land Cruiser, but it's important to be in here because it shares a lot of DNA with the Land Cruiser. This is an early full-size truck that Toyota made. So really, this would be like a grandfather of the Tundra more than it is a Land Cruiser. However, it has the same engine package. You'll see a lot of little turn signals, the hood hold down or the windshield hold down hooks, a lot of Land Cruiser-esque parts on it. But it's a full-size truck made by Toyota dating back to the 50s and 60s.
So cool, right-hand drive. Amazing.
So this is a 2015 GRJ79, and the whole so what about this one is this was a 30th anniversary in Japan model. This vehicle has 6 kilometers on it, so it's still a very brand new, never been driven. That's the original plastic on the seats. And in 2015, we had the chief engineer of the Land Cruiser visit the museum, and he got teary-eyed when he saw this in here. He said, "That's my truck. How do you have it here so fast?" Because they just barely came out in Japan, and the museum goes to great lengths to get these here. But this is a brand new truck with 6 kilometers.
6 kilometers.
000,006. And we have its twin with 7 kilometers on it, which is the 4-door wagon version. So we got the truck and the wagon here.
I feel like it would be more than 6 kilometers just going from the factory to the transporter to the ship to the...
You would think everything was minimized with the intent, don't drive it. It was, one, because of legality. These are here as an exemption in the museum. We can have them here to display, but they can't be driven on public roads because they're too new in the United States. So that was part of it, but also at any step that could be made, they were transported rather than driven just to keep all the miles off them and keep them exactly as they were delivered, brand new vehicles.
It even has the markings.
Yes.
Like, I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe from the factory.
Something from the port or the factory,
from
correct.
the port or the factory. Plastic, it probably smells like Japan in there.
That is a very original truck. It's about as original as you get. We do have 2 of them here, a wagon variant and a truck variant, both super low miles.
The thing that blows me away is that these are still being made, and I would drive this every single day as my daily driver if we could get them.
It's a cool package. Interesting, that's got a 4.0 gas motor in it as well. So the same motor that you'll find earlier Tacomas, 4Runners, so it's a very well-known motor. Factory electric winch, has locking differentials front and rear from the factory, manual.
So good.
Kind of all the goods, kind of everything people want. It's the perfect truck.
It's perfect. There's just so many. I mean, you could really spend all day here. I do a lot of tours that are about 3 hours to really cover start of the story all the way to the end of the Land Cruiser story. It's too much for video, of course, but happy to do it whenever. Well, yeah, let's just pack as much in as possible.
Okay. Here's another really special one. This is a GRJ76. So this is just like that 30th anniversary pickup truck, but this is the wagon variant. So much like the truck, it's the 4.0 gas motor, locked front and rear, solid front axle, and the factory electric winch. It's a really neat package vehicle. Also, so no miles, very single-digit kilometers in this case.
I love it. So then, because you have these as essentially brand new vehicles, do you start them to keep them all lubed up? And
yes and no. Originally, in the building you visited before, the goal was to try and keep them all running, driving. There was battery tenders on everything. It quickly became apparent, but that's kind of a lost battle to keep them all charged. Batteries kind of die with time. But if they came here running, yes, they stay running, and some of them get started up and some of them get moved. But the beauty of Land Cruisers is even if they haven't run for a lot of years, it's usually not too much of an effort to get them running. So at least 50% of the vehicles in the building here would fire right up with a fresh battery, and the other ones would take very minimal effort. Now, there's some that haven't run in many years, and we don't go out of our way to change that. We let them be as they are. It's just not worth the investment if they're just going to be sitting.
Right, but then is there any prep work, and do you drain any fluids or anything out of it?
We would if it had been over a certain amount of time, so that's all kept track of. Whereas something like this, where we know it's been stored in a nice climate-controlled facility, and we know it's been just run as we move. Sometimes we do a museum reshuffle, they'll be fired up. We're not that worried about it. We'll let them get up to operating temperature, keep an eye on all the fluids, things like that.
Got it. How many of them are in the museum that are diesel?
Diesels probably make up, just a total guess, I bet about 50%, because diesel is so prolific in Land Cruiser models around the world. You'll notice everything in this row, kind of really starting about 3/4 of the way down in this way, these are all non-US vehicles. So none of these actually came to the US North America market in most cases. A couple of them were Canadian models, but by and large, they're going to be right-hand drive, and most of these are diesels along this entire row. Less so in some of the older 40s and 60s, just because diesels weren't so common in those, but certainly have even diesel 200 series, which is the last generation Land Cruiser.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Not anymore the last generation Land Cruiser.
So do you guys have a 300 series here?
We do not. Nope, it's on our list. We'd love to get a 300 in the building. We're very fortunate to have some cool new models here, but 300 is on our list to get one, and we'll track one down eventually. And because we do operate as a museum, as mentioned, we can have one here in the U.S. It just can't ever be driven, so it'll be a show and display piece for the museum to have. So hoping to get one of those one of these days.
Very cool. I just love all of these
factory PTO winch, and that's a factory electric winch, in that case, but some of them have factory PTO winches. So many cool features. So this particular model, BJ74, factory turbo diesel, 4-cylinder. You see the turbo embroidered seats. A lot of them have factory locking differentials front and rear.
This bumper is crazy.
Very
it sticks
wide.
out so much that you have to have this indicator of where it is so you can park it.
Kind of your curb indicator. You know exactly where you're at, your bumper indicator. And that is all due to that design of the electric and primarily PTO winches you see. Aftermarket, they're usually a lot tighter, as you'll see on some of these bumpers, but on the factory edition, that's how it was on the older models.
All right, let's keep going down the line. I know some of these were actually used out of the country.
Yeah, so the E7 ones are outside.
Okay.
This one was used as well. This did the Outback Challenge with Profits and Greg Miller. They went over to Australia and did a famous Australian Outback 4x4 Extreme Challenge. That one got used. We have the Expedition 7 fleet are the ones that got driven around the world. So we've got a Land Cruiser outside.
Those are outside.
Yeah, we moved those out, and we can go look at them too. They're fair game. But
so
that Land Cruiser is driven on all 7 continents, so pretty amazing history behind that one.
I love that. This is the teaser row.
This is the teaser row. That's a good way to look at it.
This is what we could have got, but what we didn't.
what never came, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun. This is a neat one to look at because that is like a network affiliate. Is a broadcast truck.
This was one of my favorite ones from last time.
Oh, you did see that? Okay,
I think there's still some Japanese magazines in
for sure. In the back, there's a little workstation where you would have been working. There's monitors, and this just kind of goes to show you how utilitarian Land Cruisers can be around the world. You bet. Yeah. Feel free. Step on over. Yeah, you'll remember that little workstation back there. All the computers. It's just so cool how utilitarian they can be.
What I love is there's like that hand crank right there.
Yeah.
That allows you to raise and lower.
So the antenna's all stored in here, and it would let you like rotational and raise and lower a broadcast antenna. So I think it was like a signal testing strength truck. It's something to do with the a network affiliate truck.
This thing is just so cool. I love that they repurpose like seats back here to sit there to be able to do whatever they needed to do.
Make a full workstation. The drapes that would shut so you could be in there in daylight and still see your monitors. Yeah, really cool.
Amazing.
A lot of neat features.
So cool. Like, I love this. Like, this is cool in that it was purpose built. Like, if you want to talk about rare, this is probably one of the rarer ones that you guys have here, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and as far as the Surge boat, it's neat. They can be tow trucks. We've got fire trucks. This was a golf course pro's vehicle, like on the maintenance pro at a golf course. This was the vehicle he drove around on the golf course. So it had like nobody ever sat in the back. It's got a winch that got used. It has no power steering from the factory. It's just a really low trim level, just because on the golf course, that's all it ever lived its life. Vinyl floors. It doesn't even have a tachometer. It's just got a speedometer only. It's a very low trim level Land Cruiser, which you don't commonly see. Usually they're super upfitted with everything, but this is manual doors, vinyl floors, vinyl seats, and some markets got those more than others.
I couldn't imagine driving one of these without power steering.
Yeah,
that's got to be rough.
And we thought the same thing when it showed up, but check out the tires on the front versus the tires on the back. They're kind of like, you notice you got really aggressive ones on the back and a little smoother tire on the front, eases the steering.
Right.
Yeah, so no air conditioning, it's got an AM radio only, it's just a really different trim level. And then kind of next to it, you've got, that's a lot higher trim level out of this model.
So do you drive a Land Cruiser?
Absolutely.
What do you drive?
I have everything. My oldest is a 1966 FJ45, and my newest is a Heritage Edition 200 series.
For being a Land Cruiser nerd, like, this is the place to work.
This is the place to come hang out, and it's a place to work, it's a place to come hang out, cool place to come visit if you like Land Cruisers.
How long have you been working with the museum?
I've been involved since day one. Yeah.
Really?
So, the founder of the museum, Greg Miller, actually was on a road trip about 12 years ago now. We put a list together of what a museum would need to have to be called a museum. What would be fair to say, hey, we are a Land Cruiser museum, and we made that list, and that list has only grown as we've kind of learned about more models and new stuff's been introduced, and a lot of them that we thought we'd never find. We've got some here that we knew they existed, but we didn't think we'd ever find them. Well, the internet's made the world a lot smaller place, and some of these really cool Land Cruisers have now been able to come over here and be shared in the museum via places like Facebook.
Yeah, that is just too neat. I love that.
So we have the popular 80 series. Yeah, these things are bulletproof. Still one of the crowd favorites when you think of Land Cruisers. In fact, the new 300 series, they mentioned a lot that it was baseline rough road performance against even the 80 series, because these are known as some of the most stalwart off-road vehicles. So still very popular. We've got some really cool models. Like
this one looks brand new.
It does look brand new. How cool is that one? It's a 40th anniversary, so a really rare model, about 60,000 original miles. So that is a very special truck. However, as clean as that one is, this one next to it is even more interesting because it's a 2007.
What?
And that one has under 80 miles, 80 miles. Not 80,000, 80 miles. That's a Venezuelan spec 80 series with 80 original miles on it.
And this was made in 2007?
Yeah, so interesting thing about Venezuela, every other market, the 80 series was 1990 as a 91 model up to 1997, and then in late 97, January 98, the 100 series came out. Venezuela kept doing the 80 series all the way through that run up until 2007. So they were 80 series all the way to 200 series only in Venezuela, the only country that did that by agreement with Toyota. They were knockdown models being assembled in Venezuela. So very interesting, but it's all 80 series parts. There's some newer stuff and a little bit of differences from an older model, but that's how we have a Venezuelan model 2007 with 80 miles on it, because Only place they were offered.
So then the parts, chassis,
Came from Japan.
engine, everything got shipped from Japan, assembled.
In Venezuela. There are some tax reasons for that. With governmental tax reasons, there are some domestic parts on this as well that were made in Venezuela. That was maybe part of the tax agreement. But yeah, overall, it's a very fascinating project that you could have these, after they've been discontinued globally for a decade, they were still making them.
It doesn't make any sense. Why just one country?
They had enough pull. Venezuela's a big Land Cruiser country. There's a lot of Land Cruisers in that market, and they knew the 80 series well and knew that's what they wanted.
That's where I need to go next. Because we went to Colombia.
A lot of Land Cruisers in Colombia.
To check out the scene there.
Okay.
Because our friends at the FJ company,
Oh, yeah.
they build them
Yes,
there.
they do, yeah.
And they actually let me drive a pretty special one. I guess it was the electrical company, like 40
service
series.
vehicle?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
service vehicle, 40 series that were all painted green.
Wow.
Like inside and out, all green.
Just lathered it on there.
Yeah, they just used them to service electric poles
How
and stuff.
cool is that?
So, yeah, I mean, I thought I got my fill going there. There's so many other countries to
Venezuela,
go to.
Bolivia has a lot of Land Cruisers. I've spent a lot of time in Colombia, very Land Cruiser centric, collectivos, you see them everywhere, industrial. Of course, Australia is still very, you see a lot of them, older models included, but all over Latin America, they use them because they work. That's what gets you
That's
to
how
the
you get
backcountry.
to your
That's how
house.
you get there, yeah.
Can we take a look at this?
You bet, yeah, feel free.
So left-hand drive.
Left-hand drive, which like Latin American countries, South America are left-hand drive. So it's very similar, leather seats, so it's got some newer stuff to it.
It's a brand new.
But it's a brand new car.
So even the plastic. Oh, this is insane. It's funny. It has like a Camry steering wheel.
Yeah, you did. They kind of used the parts that they were still making at that time.
Amazing. The seats, like never been sat in.
It had very little use. Somebody had added like a cell phone holder in the center console there, just so it had a couple little add-ons that had been put on there, but overall it's a very original vehicle, very survivor vehicle.
No third row.
Right.
But still like the plastic on the trim and
Yeah, it
everything.
still has the plastic over that chrome edge on the back. And Autana was the model in Venezuela. That's kind of what they were called, as Autanas, but it's still an 80 series Land Cruiser. That was just their local name in that market only.
This is just, so this was a Canadian car.
No, it came in via Canada. So,
okay, got it.
Just the importer is a Canadian-based company that helped with the import on this one.
Got it. Wow.
It lived its life in Venezuela right up until the last couple of years.
I didn't know that this even existed. You learn something new every day. What's this? Tag along?
So this is a FJ55, and this was used in the Moab area to haul kayakers, rafters, mountain bikers, hikers all over as a tour vehicle. And you can see a picture of this exact vehicle in use right here. And they would just load it up full of people's camping gear and supplies and shuffle them out to the outdoors.
Wow.
That's kind of got a really cool patina. You can tell it's a well-used Land Cruiser.
So then all of these, every one of these, non-US?
No, there's a few
then-
U.S. ones. So like,
this one is,
this 40th
yeah.
anniversary is a U.S. But yes,
Got it.
other than the FZJ80 and the FJ80, everything else is non-U.S.
Non-US.
These two are U.S. This is actually a Canadian model, but a North America
Yeah.
spec. So this is a very clean FJ55 because this one has just 11,000 original miles on it. So that is a very original model. These are the exact same vehicle.
Whoa.
But you can see what a contrast they are with one that's lived its whole life in the Moab backcountry bouncing along dirt roads, and you've got this very beautiful one. And then a tow truck on the end from the Japan Auto Federation.
I love that.
And that's a full service tow truck.
Jeff. Too cool. And then eventually that's going to be in the museum.
We're hoping to have one of those soon. Absolutely. It's a beautiful vehicle, and it looks right at home in here too.
So cool. Can we go on that side?
You bet.
I remember that adventure sign from
That was in the old building.
before, yeah, from the old building.
So this is kind of the cousins row. So not all of these have pure Land Cruiser DNA or pure Toyota DNA. So some of them are like the Toyota Blizzards actually were a joint project with Daihatsu. Of course, we have the FJ Cruiser because that's an important part of the cruiser story and the Land Cruiser story in North America. And some Banderantes down on the end, which were actually Brazil made. So they're not technically a Land Cruiser, but they were built again under license. That's these last two.
This
built under
one
license.
looks like a brand new vehicle.
This has never been dealer prepped either. So that is a Trail Team Edition FJ Cruiser, and that one maybe has 15 miles on it. So that is also a very low mile one. You can still see the original plastic on the roof.
Yeah, original plastic on.
Yeah.
Somebody decided
Somebody
to take
took
that
one off. Yeah.
and then somebody left that one.
But yeah, this has under 20 original miles on it.
I couldn't tell you how much this is worth.
Well, as we know, FJ Cruisers, particularly the last few years, the price has gone quite significantly high. I mean, like, surprising. They're great vehicles and they had a great loyal fan following, but the numbers of what the value on them is selling for, so you're right, one with like 0 miles on it could hit some pretty crazy numbers in an auction type format.
So I have a first year manual, supercharged, and we use that to chase off-road racing.
Oh, right on. What kind of racing do you do?
To chase off-road racing.
Chasing, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
So we follow like Baja 1000.
Yeah, I raced the 1000. We raced it in a Land Cruiser.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or we chase Min 400 or King of the Hammers or
raced all those.
Vegas
so
Reno.
Love them all.
You know, any and every off-road race.
That's a perfect chase vehicle.
Yeah. We'll use that in a Tundra. But
well, we'll have our 200 series down at the 1000 again this year. We've raced it about the last 10 years roughly. Missed a couple of years, but
so yeah.
Last year we raced our 200 and then we supported a 600.
Yeah. So, wait, did I meet you?
I think you came over in the start line. I was in the passenger seat of the LX600. Yes, we chatted.
Yes.
Okay.
What?
The Joust,
I saw that
Joust
car.
race car.
I saw that car at Tokyo Auto Salon this year.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It's back there.
Yeah.
It's coming back over to race again this year.
Oh, that's so
that's
cool.
the Joust Lexus LX600.
We met each other without even realizing.
That actually totally jives now because your name was like, I know him. And I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was like,
How
I know
funny is that?
him, but I hadn't remembered
You
meeting.
know what's funny is that whole race we were hired by Ford to follow the Ford effort, and we did.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Yeah.
But the stuff, my posts that performed the best
Toyota stuff.
were the Toyotas.
I saw that. Yeah.
And we chased it with my FJ and with my.
So you were down there in your FJ Cruiser. So you've got a 2006.
Yeah, in the
supercharged
2007.
manual. 2007. Yes,
Supercharged
Came
manual.
out in 06, 2007.
And also our Tundra is wide body supercharged also.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So
Well, that your FJ Cruiser, that's a cool one. So you've got the
Yeah.
factory TRD supercharger on it. You had it like, or
well,
is it a
no,
Magnuson
it's a
later?
Magnuson
Okay,
one.
yeah,
So
cool.
it's the same casting.
Same company made them.
Yeah,
A
same
little better
company.
tuning out of the Magnuson
Yeah.
one.
But a little more power.
Yeah, that's a cool FJ Cruiser.
So that's so funny.
Yeah, small world. See, we have met.
The nerds
Full-
unite.
Full frontal nerd.
Yeah. So then, what
So
do we?
these are Bondurantes, so they definitely have a lot of attributes of an older 40 series Land Cruiser, but they're made by a company in Brazil, in country. Again, some of those tax reasons. There's some Toyota parts on there, but like Dana 60 rear axles on them, so like kind of a mix of components, and a lot of that was done because of tax and import laws.
That is so crazy. Toyota Bondurante.
But if you look at the badging, Mercedes-Benz powered.
What?
That is not an original hood ornament. That probably came off of some bus, but it just looks so cool on there, we don't take it off. But they were Mercedes powered, and there's some were Toyota powered as well.
This is just so... You know, the cool thing about it is that people like you and I are nerding out about these, but this in country wouldn't even bat an eye.
No, so common, and
that's
just, and they know it's just a tough truck that gets you to the places you need to go.
Yeah. So the last time we were in Colombia, we were driving around in the FJ company, their GS40, right? So 250, 275,000.
Yeah, beautiful
right?
vehicles.
Very expensive vehicles. We passed by a farmer. The guy's like, I'll trade you 3 cows for that vehicle.
It's worth a little more. We're off by a couple number of cows. Yeah. That's
by
funny.
a couple of
He
cows.
thought it was just an old 40 series.
Exactly.
Which are everywhere down
exactly.
there. Yeah, so to
and
him
then,
it was an
and
old
then they
40.
just blend into traffic, and nobody bats an eye. People have no idea that it's an almost $300,000 vehicle.
Yeah,
you know?
and they build their beautiful machines, and I could see how locally there they wouldn't get that has. They wouldn't understand how much additional effort's been added to
right,
those.
but something
Same
like
with
this, we're freaking out over this.
Yeah.
But what country did this come out of?
Brazil.
Brazil. So
Yeah.
if this was driving around in Brazil, people would be like, get that old Toyota out of the way.
Yeah.
Get that off the road. You
I
know?
just think that's what it was. Yeah, the really interesting concept because it was partially owned by the Brazilian government, but Toyota offered some licensing, which is why they were able to do some of the end-used Toyota parts on some of it. So it's a really one of those interesting relationships that we don't see to this day.
And so this is a military.
And the military version used by the Brazilian military.
Wow. Look at those seats. All right, let's keep going down.
So this would be a newer one since you visited. Right, do you remember seeing this one?
No,
Yeah,
I don't
this is a newer
remember
one.
this
And so
at
this
all.
is a Saudi Arabian model 43 series, so it's got that little bit longer wheelbase, and it is, believe it or not, that is a restoration. So it's made to look like exactly how these vehicles shipped into port. So they would have come just like this, the windshield folded down, the big wood crate in the back would have had the hard top or soft top components, spare tire. But in Saudi Arabia, it's kind of a popular thing to do is make them look like they were just as they came from the port. So you'll restore it back to the way it looked like when it shipped on a boat. And that's exactly what has happened with this model. Including the dust.
Going through a dust storm.
Including letting it
And
sit out and get
cats.
this, and cats running around it. All that patina is kind of part of the process.
No way. That is so cool. So then what's in here?
So this would have been all the parts that you don't see from the vehicle up, such as the soft top bows, the soft top itself, spare tires strapped on top. So because of shipping reasons and restrictions and height, they would have shipped the vehicle like this, and then the port or the dealers would have assembled them.
Amazing. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, KSA.
Oh, so cool.
A neat vehicle.
That is really neat.
This is a really special one as well. This is a BJ44, so this is a diesel model, Japan spec, a JDM spec, but also very low miles in the 20,000 kilometer range. The plastic on those visors, that is original plastic. That's got plastic on the door cards on the inside. So this is a completely unrestored Survivor 40 series, in this case a BJ44. So that is all original.
Is it somebody's job just to look for these vehicles, or did they just come?
No, definitely all of us here at the museum. Greg, the founder, spends a lot of time kind of looking for different models, especially as we refine the list. Dan and Jules, who work in the front office, and I'm on the board of directors, we kind of always are looking for these special ones, and as we hear about them. In this case, there was a collector that we had come to hear about that had about 40, 50 Land Cruisers, and we were able to go visit his collection after a lot of negotiations to get him to open his doors. Naturally, as you can expect, he was a little reluctant to just say, hey, come look at everything I have. And we saw these and thought like, wow, that is an amazing vehicle to have something with 20,000 original miles on it. So sometimes you get them from a collector that does know what they are, and sometimes it comes from collectors or from owners that don't really have a clue what they have.
So then the founder is Greg?
Greg Miller, yeah.
So Greg, he owns a lot of car dealerships.
They did, yeah. The family, the Larry H. Miller was his father, and Greg ran that company for a lot of years. They owned up to maybe in the 65, 70 dealership range of all different marquees, including a lot of Toyota and Lexus dealerships. So he just always had an appreciation for Toyotas. That was his dad's first dealership, and he had a lot of memories. He was a general manager at a Toyota dealership, always loved Land Cruisers. So he had this affinity for them, and at the time owned, call it 15 or 20 various, some restored, some really built ones. And when went to visiting Japan as part of the Expedition 7, looked around for a Land Cruiser museum thinking, hey, there's gotta be one. And when he didn't find one, said, we've gotta be that museum. That's how the museum came to be, is there needed to be a place to celebrate Land Cruisers for users around the world to come visit, to come see all the different models. So you see, we do have a lot from outside the United States. That's because those here aren't able to see those too often, and now they can come actually look at them in person.
Yeah. And you guys hold a lot of events here, like gatherings.
Yeah.
I need to come to one of those.
Every year, I'd invite you personally. Cruiser Fest is like the first, like the second Saturday of September every year. We get a couple hundred people here, a couple hundred Land Cruisers out in the parking lot, plus there's events, contests, classes. Really fun. And we do a lot of other events here throughout the year as well. Just different tours, and get a lot of groups that come in, and a lot of international travelers come visit and make a kind of a pilgrimage to come see the Land Cruiser epicenter.
Yeah, I love that. It just happens to be in Salt Lake City.
Happens to be here, yeah. We're very fortunate to have it here.
So cool.
How about this one? Do you remember seeing this one? This is probably new.
I don't remember seeing this one.
Yeah, you would remember this one. So this is a really interesting one. It's a 1973 FJ40, but this is a victim of the campfire in Paradise, California.
It definitely is a new one.
Yeah. So this would have been after your visit.
Wow.
Kind of a remarkable story. We like to think of Land Cruisers as being these amazing, tough vehicles, but obviously Mother Nature and the power of such a gnarly fire. Yeah, you just look at the steel belting of the tires, the headlights melted right out of it.
No way, look at that.
Pretty destructive. And we were able to have the owner of this vehicle come to that Cruiser Fest event and share the story of this. His kids had learned to drive in it. You could tell it was quite modified with the winch and bumpers and spare tire carrier. And he knew the fire was coming. They had a warning. They had X amount of time to get out. So they're loading up all their family heirlooms and valuables at their house. He had planned to start this up and drive it into the pond behind his house. And his thought was, if I can just drive it into the pond, let it ghost ride into the pond, I'll be able to get it out later and restore it. Like it won't be running because it'll be full of water, but at least I can restore it. It had a dead battery. So he went to go crank it, fired up, and he had to like just basically walk away from his beloved Land Cruiser, like teary-eyed. He needed a jump start pack, yeah. So he had to just drive away knowing I couldn't get it started. He had minutes to spare and had to drive away knowing he couldn't drive it into the pond.
That is just terrible. So then that was in California.
Correct, yeah.
Was that the same fire? They had that Tundra that was going in and out?
I believe there was a couple big ones right at that time, so don't hold me that one, but it may have been the exact same one, because you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
The one that got burned,
that got burned, and
kept going back and forth.
Yep, they showed that at SEMA later on, and Toyota worked with the owner on a new Tundra. Yeah, same time frame. Don't quote me that it's the exact same one, but very similar, 2018 time frame.
This is just so crazy.
Isn't that wild? Such a juxtaposition versus the other vehicles here.
I mean, the crazy thing to me is you could still tell what it is.
Yeah, you can still absolutely see. I mean, it's like, a little worse for wear, but you can still see what it is.
Now it lives here forever.
Forever it will be on display. And it kind of tells quite a story, just how tough they are, but Mother Nature. I mean, that axle, if you look from back here, the full axle's got a big smiley face. I mean, that's just how hot that fire got. It bent everything. There is one piece on the back, and it's a Toyota emblem, and it's actually made of like a porcelain material, like an inlay on the thing. It still looks brand new.
Can I take a look?
You're welcome to look, yeah. And people that have peeked back behind here see from the other row often accuse us of like, why did you put a brand new emblem on this vehicle?
Oh no, look at that.
Had a nice toughy console. And
look at the steering wheel. There were a fire extinguisher in here.
Kind of ironic.
Yeah, a little bit. What blows me away is that there's still so much that's left.
Yeah, look at.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You see that emblem? People are like, why did you put a new emblem on?
So it's made of porcelain.
It's got like a pewter or porcelain material, yeah, and that's the original. That's like how well that survived.
Wow, look at the bulbs all burned out and everything.
So much heat.
Just crazy. The seat even survived.
Yeah, just an upholstery job away from being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You can see his tools and just other stuff he had in there. Pretty wild, isn't it?
Poor car.
So one of the really neat things, and 40s really tell this almost the best is the way they're laid out here, is that Toyota's a solution provider, particularly with the Land Cruiser. You could always get a short wheelbase two-door, often in hardtop or soft top. You could get a short wheelbase pickup truck. You could get a long wheelbase pickup truck, and you could get a troop carrier. So if you stand right here, you can really see all of those different models. So you had a solution for somebody that needed a truck, long or short bed, cab, and a wagon as well. So there's like a four-door wagon and then the pickup truck and the troopy. So just all these cool variations, all are 40 series, and in many cases all offered the same time frame.
Was this original color?
That is an original color, yeah. That is spring green, very popular, often called seafoam green, but the name's spring green. Kind of a little different, but it's well loved because it kind of stands out so well.
So cool. I've never seen this before.
The beautiful color. This one is a full restoration done by Profits Cruisers out of Colorado, but all to factory spec. Got a beautiful troop carrier, and then these two cool wagons. So FJ45 LVs. These are U.S. spec vehicles. Came to the United States, and they're very interesting because everything is kind of like 40 series on the front, but from the A pillar back, it's all very unique to the LV chassis.
Look at that patina.
That's exactly why it's here. So believe it or not, this one came from Canada and was sourced all the way out of Canada just because it has such a cool look to it. And it tells such a cool story. Like, I wish I knew how all this happened, but what we do know is this Land Cruiser lived a tough life. This did some tough things in its day. It worked.
No kidding.
Right? These are all really cool ones as well. When we made that list I mentioned about what a Land Cruiser would need to have, or what a museum would need to have, the list Greg and I worked on, we kind of really never thought we'd see even a single FJ28, let alone 4 FJ28s, because these are so rare globally. But again, the internet kind of made the world a smaller place, and all of these came out of Venezuela.
Oh. When did you guys get these?
The last like 3 to 5 years, they've all been, since we've been in the new building, they were always here. A couple of them were in the older building as well. So kind of have like the truck version, a soft top version, a 2-door wagon version, and a 4-door wagon version. So all versions of a FJ28.
And then what engine?
They would have been F powered, so it would have been a 1F powered motor. So an inline 6 carbureted, 3-speed transmission.
So crazy. Look at the windshield wipers on this one.
Yeah, and this one,
the top.
definitely not super original. That top was probably built in country. This is a really interesting one because it came out of Venezuela, but it's right-hand drive. So it's actually a Japan market vehicle that somehow ended up its life in Venezuela and then made its way back to the US. So it's been a handful of different places. And I apologize, this one actually came out of Mexico. So, but still left-hand drive. Yeah,
Got
so
it.
would
Still,
not.
yeah, weird.
It's weird. A right-hand drive old 28 Land Cruiser ends up in Mexico and then makes its way to the museum here in the US.
Is there any other museum that holds a candle to this place?
No, there are collectors, to our knowledge, as best as anyone has ever been able to find out, nobody has a museum with this kind of diversity to it. Now there are collectors, particularly like in the Middle East, that maybe have higher volumes of Land Cruisers, but they're gonna have a lot of the exact same one, a lot of late model 200s, rows of them. So there are collectors that have number-wise as many, but certainly not the diverse collection we have.
And another question, you don't have anything that's like converted for war.
No, I mean, we have the Brazilian Bandeirante, which is a military vehicle. We have a Norforce vehicle right here at the front, which is an Australian Special Forces vehicle. So we certainly have some that were used in those type of theaters.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, you've seen it.
Yeah, sure.
Toyota's a war.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say we're not, personal opinion is they're used by US forces, they're used by Japan forces, they're used by so many different ones. We would certainly entertain having a late model one here in the museum.
If you get one with a surface-to-air missile in the back,
pretty neat, wouldn't it?
I would be so excited just to see it.
I've been able to have the folks from Toyotas of War come visit, and they've got some cool photos of those being used all over the place. And yeah, we've had a lot of US service members come visit the museum as well that spend a lot of time in 70 series downrange.
Do you have any ones that are bulletproof here?
We do not have an armored car, and that is on our list of kind of ones we're missing. We maintain an active list of ones that we would like to get, room allow, budget allow, all things considered. There's still about 20 that we feel we need to have in the museum to really be complete, and then we'll keep finding cool ones along the way. Maybe they have race history.
Yeah.
There's a 200 series that's been winning the Dakar Rally for a whole bunch of years. There's the Kangaroo racing one that's won the Baja 1000 a handful of years. So there's a lot of cool, just race history alone, let alone some of those other significant ones.
This is pretty interesting. What's this?
It's a really cool truck, very Australian. You can tell the visor, the really bull bar, and one of the really neat features, that's just an air cleaner. So that's a big air filter, fender mounted. So maybe a little different than a snorkel, but just gives you a lot more air cleaner capacity that's easy to do a dust dump. You just squeeze this little guy and all the dust dumps right out the bottom, and has a pre-cleaner as well. So it's got a centrifugal kind of cleaner that all the dust collects in. So this was likely used in a very dusty place.
Where does the air go in then?
Comes right through the snorkel. The pre-cleaner head.
Under here.
The pre-cleaner head. And it spins around, so any heavy particles get dumped out in the outer bowl here. Then air comes through the normal air cleaner and can get separated. So you've got this little dust opening, you squeeze and dump the dust out of it.
That is
and then
so
finally
cool.
The cleanest stuff makes it into the motor. And this is a diesel model, a non-turbo diesel model. This is called an HJ47.
That is too cool. Oh,
Very Australian.
I love this.
The ambulance. So that's also an HJ47. In this case, it's kind of been set up as it is a full ambulance, air conditioning up on top to really add a lot more. And it's a big first aid machine.
So then you couldn't get air conditioning, like you couldn't get a condenser or anything.
No, some
front.
do. You absolutely could. You could get both power steering and air conditioning in those later models. I'm guessing they added this one just because this was probably a command post and just needed that additional air conditioning if you had patients or people in the back, possibly because of things they were storing inside. But you could get factory air conditioning on the dash.
It's huge inside.
It's a big machine.
So like the body.
All custom body, yeah.
All custom.
So they would have started with a platform like the one next to it here and built it into this full ambulance.
You got a bunch
body.
of die-cast models in there.
Yeah, it's kind of our storage machine. We store stuff for the store in the front.
This is so cool. Australia. So I'm guessing these were the ones that were parked up front.
Yes,
at the old.
they were right as you walked in,
Yeah.
because at the time, these were, and still are, this is, as best as anybody can do any documentation, this is Land Cruiser #1 that came to the United States. Not this model, this exact vehicle is the first Land Cruiser
in the country?
sold in the United States, yes. It was sold as it came off the boat in California, so this is #1. This vehicle next to it has a lot of real neat significance to it as well, because you'll notice what it doesn't say on the fender. That's because that is before they were using the name Land Cruiser. That predates the use of the name. So that is the model that led to the Land Cruiser.
It's just called a Toyota.
BJT. Toyota BJT, yep, is the model of this one.
So cool. So what's the story behind these two? How did you guys acquire these two?
The FJ25, which is the first known to come to the United States, that came from a collector in California. His name's Jonathan Ward, who's a well-known Land
of
Cruiser
course.
enthusiast.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
Jonathan? Yeah, the Icons, yeah.
Yeah.
That came out of Jonathan's collection. He had tracked that one down over time. The BJT here came out of Australia. There's so few of these known to exist. Probably under 10, more than 5 under 10 of BJTs that are known to exist anywhere. There's a couple being restored in Japan and a couple others in Australia, but very, very small numbers of these were ever made, let alone still exist to this day.
What really blows me away is that the gauges and even the instructions are still in English.
Yeah, this kind of interesting. They were, if you kind of read some of the origin stories, some of the market where these would have been potential military ones. This is in Japan following World War II, so there were some contracts being awarded to build these vehicles, and certainly led to why it's in English.
This is crazy. Look at this scene.
That's a
right
row,
here.
right? That's a good row.
Wow. This is just so. Honestly, this is just so grand. Nothing against the old place. The ceiling was a lot lower.
It was a lot lower,
And
yeah. Felt
that-
a little tight in there.
That's why this is just such a grand view. And then of course you have the new one that's just like right in
Right
the middle.
down there, just
there.
showing off.
So what's going on with this?
This is a Norforce vehicle, so this is an Australian military vehicle. Like this would have been kind of a special forces vehicle of Australia. You can see
The
it's got-
camo job was just like some guy.
Yeah, and it's been repainted. So I mean, this has kind of been cleaned up, but the configuration with the roof rack and the roll cage and kind of the way the exo cage was built, that's all original to the Norforce vehicle. So this would have been like a mobility platform for their military.
Wow. It makes me wonder if any of those, like the technicals, like that were actually used in the Toyota War, if any of them survived.
Yeah, and
You know?
and whether they'd be importable or not could be tough to bring them over. There's some.
You have to make some fake props.
Yeah.
For them. You know, even if you took off all the weapons, it would be interesting for you guys to
See
like
what it
just,
looked like.
Just, you know, I mean, we know what they look like.
Right.
But to see one,
What the process was like to get them here.
or just the history behind it, you know,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the things that like that has seen. Oh, I
Talk
couldn't
about
even
one use in
imagine.
some of those situations. Yeah, and we definitely want to be sensitive to how that would be done. So maybe it'll happen in the future. I would say the more likely, in my opinion, would be one that's used by U.S. forces or maybe a NATO
Yeah.
force, since there's a lot of 70 series.
Or a
network.
UN one.
Or a UN vehicle.
Yeah.
Actually, a UN vehicle is absolutely on our list.
That
'cause
would be super
there's so many 70 series being used by UN and later model as well, 100s and 200s.
Yeah.
So seeing one with that big UN stamp on the door would be a really neat addition to the museum here. And I think one day we'll track one down.
That would be cool. So now the newer wing,
Yep, that's the newer
all
wing
that
around
stuff.
the corner.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's
Now
check
you'll
that
notice
out.
there's no 60 series in the building because they're out back, and that's
Okay.
because we made room for the new vehicle. And we can walk
Yeah,
out
we'll
there
check
and take
that.
a peek at it. Yeah.
We'll check that out.
But this,
and you
this-
guys have a workshop too now?
no real like for working on them. There's an auditorium here just for doing classroom stuff, and then over here is just where all the Expedition 7 and all the newer vehicles are. There's not really a shop to do work on them here. They'd be taken off site to do anything like that.
Oh, really? Okay. So then restorations or
Yeah.
like anything that needs to be fixed, you actually take it offsite.
We do, and the museum really doesn't get in the business of having restorations done, with the exception of one or two vehicles. Usually, if it came here, it's a survivor, and that'll be the way it'll stay. So, like this vehicle behind us, it likely will never get restored because you can't tell that story after you restore it, right? That like it's telling its story now. Now, we do have a lot that are restored, and if they're a beautiful restoration and everything looks clean and authentic, then that would be a perfect reason to have them here.
Right. But like, if there's always a reason to like work on something. If,
Oh yeah.
whatever, the tires got flat, you got to change the tires or whatever. Like,
there's no shortage of batteries and leaks and tires to repair here. Absolutely.
So every one of these don't have a battery in them? Like you took them all out?
Almost every one of them, the batteries have been pulled out. At the old building that you visited, as I mentioned, it was kind of the thought was try and keep chargers on all of them. If it was running, keep it running, driving. But that's a lot of batteries. It's a lot of cord stretched all over. So now the batteries come out of them, and then if we need to run them, we'll just throw a battery in there and fire them up. And yeah, about half of them still run just with the battery, fire right up.
So what do we got here?
These are the Prados.
Prados.
So we're at the 90 series and the 150 series. So this would be the US, we never had the 90s 120, which we don't have a 120 in the lineup. We're working on one and a 150, but that'd be essentially like the GX 470 and the GX 460 as far as chassis wise. The 90 series predates that a little bit. That is going to be very, very similar to like a third gen 4Runner. That's got the same 5VZ 3.4 liter motor, very similar suspension. So just a little different body platform than the US 4Runner we had.
So you guys don't actually have any Lexus vehicles in here?
No Lexus vehicles, yeah. It is the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum. I think you could certainly make a case that there's some Lexuses that would be appropriate here, a 450, a 470, a 570, and a 600. So maybe at some point, kind of out of room a little bit too. So some of that's been a decision based on what we can fit in the building. So we're working, one of these days we need a building stretcher to add on a little bit. We moved into this new, bigger building, but by the time you got all the vehicles in here, we were right back to full house.
And these are parked pretty tight.
Pretty tight, yeah. At one point when the collection was a lot smaller in the 50 to 60 range, we had it so you could still open doors. And patrons could come through and like carefully open a door. That got too tough to accommodate with the space. We would have had to just have a lot less vehicles in the building, so the decision was made that they're gonna park a little tighter. So you can't see inside of them as easily, but if there's a special need or a guest has a need to, hey, can I look at something inside? Maybe they're restoring their vehicle and they need to see how a bolt was painted. We can make that happen.
Got it. That's so cool. That's what's cool about this place, really.
Yeah, the hope was always one of Greg's big visions, not just sharing and embracing and celebrating Land Cruiser history, but it's a resource that for any Land Cruiser enthusiast, if you don't know how it's supposed to go together or what color something should be, is that painted the body color or black, you could come here and look. And we don't claim to have the most perfect of any vehicle. There's certainly some here that need some revision as well, but it gets refined and refined as time goes on to where we are gonna hopefully have a perfect one of everything.
This honestly is probably the coolest section.
The fire trucks.
Like the fire trucks. Like this is just...
We have a brand new one around the corner that just showed up this week, a really cool one. It's an FJ24, so it's like the 25 series, so it's a 1960. It's a really old fire truck all the way up until 70 series. So we've got a 20, a 40, a 50, a 60, and a 70, and one day we'll have like an 80 and 100 series because they did make fire trucks all the way on platforms up to 200 series. So you'll see fire trucks built on about every platform.
One that would be really cool is the Japanese highway, like patrol vehicles. I don't know if you guys have any of those.
We don't. That one was a tollway, the yellow one.
Yeah.
That thing's got like 500,000 miles on it. That was a tollway vehicle. Then we have the Japan Auto Federation tow truck. We need a patrol vehicle. Would be really neat. That's on our list.
Love
That's
those.
on our list.
I love
for sure.
seeing those. But and also
the mega cruisers. And we can walk around the front of those and peek at them.
So it's crazy to me how big of a space is like. There's so much room here.
It's wild. When you sit in the two front seats, you can barely fist bump your co-dog. You know, like the two of you have a hard time. That's how wide they are. And if you look at even the seats are like offset in the wheel well, that's because all of that drivetrain is up in this upper portion. So it's got a very flat bottom. So the tranny and T-case sit quite high, and it's got portal reduction hub. So it's got a lot of ground clearance.
It just blows me away that something this big and heavy and it's so 4-cylinder.
It's 4-cylinder turbo diesel. It's got the motor's called a 15 BT. It's quite a peppy motor, but also consider the use for these. They're used in like a convoy format. So they're really great up to about 65 miles an hour, 60, 65 miles an hour. After that, you're kind of really wringing their neck to push them harder because they weren't used on high-speed highways like that. They also don't have a terribly huge fuel tank because they probably were traveling with a trailer in one of the vehicles hauling fuel. They're kind of set up for mobility and moving people.
And these weren't armored either.
No,
like these are just like troop carriers.
They're a troop carrier, yeah. And they had other models. You can get a truck version that did have some like bed space. There are some that had technicals mounted, but by and large, they're for mobility of troops. And then the civilian version.
How
very
many
rare.
of these exist?
The number's somewhere in like the 165 to 180 range, as best as anybody can tell by looking at all the VIN data. So very low volume.
So this, because it's an older vehicle, now is legal in the US.
Correct.
But it's already wide enough for US roads. Could you imagine driving this in Japan?
I can't even imagine how that made sense to drive there. I think personal guess is that this was kind of like executives and maybe some VIPs wanted to have a mega cruiser, but in civilian trim. Because if you look at the way they're made, you'll see a lot of parts, 80 series shifter, the steering wheel is kind of a borrowed one. So there are a lot of parts used from other models to put together the civilian character. It does have air conditioning in it, but it's its own whole big box in the center console is the AC. So it's kind of a really, not an afterthought, but it was rudimentary to get air conditioning.
Can I take a look at it?
You bet. If it's locked, I may have to go grab keys.
Oh, it's okay.
We can pop the driver's side open though. Or sorry, the passenger side in this
okay.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, last time I was here, David started it for us, and it smoked the whole place out.
It would, yeah, especially when they've been sitting for a while.
Yeah. What an interesting door.
That paddle, same as the military side. So some things they used, some things they didn't. A paddle.
So crazy. The piece of glass here, large.
It's a very large windshield, isn't it?
So large. And that smell.
JDM feels
very, very JDM. Of course, you got to have your ashtray.
Gotta have an ashtray.
And then it looks like you are able to control the AC from this side.
Yes, passenger and driver had controls.
Oh, so this is the air conditioning
That's
unit.
the whole unit right there in the middle. So look at the military version on this side. See how there's nothing in that center console? That whole box is like an add-on air conditioning HVAC unit. These do have heat, but nothing beyond that. They have heat and a fan, no AC.
What's amazing to me is the civilian version
The stadium style seating.
has seats in the middle.
Yeah. And look how high you sit in those seats as well. You're kind of like elevated over the...
It even has a sunroof.
Yeah. One thing to note about we mentioned driving, what it would be like to drive this on a narrow Japan road. They do have four-wheel steering, so that was a big improvement over other vehicles of this type, like mobility platforms, is that four-wheel steering makes a big difference in your ability to kind of maneuver in and out of tight stuff.
So has this ever driven around in Utah?
Yeah, I've taken it to 4x4 shows, and it is now a legal import because of its age, so we were able to take this to some auto shows and move it between buildings.
So what, 1996.
It's a 96 model, yeah.
Yeah.
So this one's over the 25-year mark. It's not currently registered and licensed. You'd have to, do a specialty or do a temporary plate for it to move it. But yeah, that one runs and drives.
Yeah, this should be easy for you guys in Utah, though.
Yeah, not too bad.
For something that I've seen before, and I've spent time just like enjoying it before, it's still so crazy to me. Can we take a look at the engine bay?
You bet.
Just open the hatch.
Yep, just go ahead and unpop that hood. And it just tilts forward. They're fiberglass, so it's quite lightweight given how big it is. And that hood prop will actually self-set, just like that.
Oh.
So this is called a 15BT.
Was this used in anything else?
It was. There's some like Toyota Dynas, like some big van, kind of big bus van type vehicles that the same platform was used in, that same motor.
Oh.
It's like a bus.
Big old air cleaner here. Look at that suspension.
So it's torsion. So it uses torsion bars. So you'll notice no coil, no leaf spring. It's a torsion bar.
Interesting. Oh, this is the torsion. This is not a coil, or this is not a sway bar.
That's a sway bar.
Oh,
the torsion's from this upper control arm back. It's mounted on the upper control arm and reaches backwards.
Oh, okay.
So cool platform. This is the 15B FT. So it's a dual overhead cam. It's a 16 valve. Quite peppy. Like number-wise, it's crazy to think of this big of a vehicle moving around with a four-cylinder, but they move around just fine. 3 wipers.
Well, it's just like
Oh, and all the defrost ducts.
The defrost.
It has all of the defrost ducts.
So many defrost.
It needed every one of them. But 3 wipers is another interesting one as well. So you saw that on your F3 Cruiser's 3 wipers, but the Mega Cruiser, it needed 3 wipers early on and all those defrost ducts.
You know, this funny thing to me is this is like, it being right-hand drive, it's like extreme right.
Very over there, yeah.
Like you're very
Look
right.
how far apart we are.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when you sit driver and passenger, you can barely fist bump across the middle. It's that wide, that center console.
It's got to be an event every time you are able to take this out.
It's quite a bit. Now, the military version, which is the BXD-10, there's a handful of those driving around town, so those are pretty common.
Oh, really?
I drive one to work on occasion, I'll spend time. Those are a lot more common to see. The civilian version, because of the rare numbers, it's quite uncommon sight. There's less than half a dozen of these in the US, and I bet the number's more like 3 or 4 civilian versions that exist stateside.
What's cool to me is like all the window switches are on the left.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. And then you can activate the 4-wheel steering.
No, you've got a center diff lock button, so it is a full-time 4-wheel drive, and it has front and rear factory locking differentials front and rear. It has an air up feature, so particularly in the military ones, this would be the case. You can air up and down the rear tire only. The civilian one doesn't do that, but the BXD-10s do. There's not a rear steer button. What are you looking on that?
So then it just does it by itself.
It does. So it's actually, and it's counter steer. So when you go full crank, you'll see that back end kick over, and it makes it very easy to do it. But you can't control that independently. Center diff and the front and rear lockers you can control independently.
Got it. So cool. Do you need help putting it down?
All good. If you'll hold that other side there, and you got to pop the prop rod, and it just kind of gently puts itself away. There we are. Not too bad.
Match it. What a neat vehicle. This is, so there's the fleet of Expedition 7 vehicles here, but this is the special one, which is why it's staying in the building. This one's nickname is Fernway. And this is a VDJ78, so that's got the 1VD FTV. It's a V8 turbo diesel motor package, 5-speed transmission, factory locking differentials. But this vehicle has driven on all 7 continents, this exact one. So amazing.
A very special vehicle. Now the sticker package, the decal graphics happened before the trip happened, so it's not exactly that layout, but it basically crossed all 6 continents here and then did Antarctica.
So how much did it drive in Antarctica?
In Antarctica, it was a very short duration because of the preparation it would have taken to drive this to like the South Pole or to the other side. So that's why we have an Arctic truck outside. The Arctic truck did that part of the trip for Expedition 7, and then that same Arctic truck we have went on to cross Greenland.
Wow.
You're totally welcome to go check that out. And then you got an icon.
One of Ward's.
One of his beautiful machines.
Amazing. So how did you guys get this in the museum?
Greg owns this one personally. This is one that he picked up, and this one's plated so that he can drive that. So he worked with Jonathan to track one down, and this is one that he'll go enjoy. This one gets driven.
I love that. All right, so the front of the fire trucks. Do you guys, when you guys get them in, do you test the lights and see if any of the stuff works?
Quite a few of these still, all the lights work, the sirens work, some of them have radios. Now, they don't have batteries in them now because the batteries would just go dead pretty quickly, but yeah, absolutely, we play with all the switches and the lights, and they're fun to play with.
Gosh, this is so cool. It's amazing to me that a lot of this stuff is in still really good condition.
Yeah.
Like the pinstriping and, there's that badge that's on pretty much all the police cars.
Yeah, and I think like a service vehicle anywhere, they take really good care. They probably wash it once a week.
Whoa, what a funny looking door.
Is that cool? The soft door? Yeah, kind of. So in the warmer months, they probably had those doors taken off.
Oh,
but
this
that
is
allowed
so
them
cool
to have
too.
room. Yeah, the big siren on the fender.
Siren. Amazing. Made in Japan. This is so cool.
Just all the...
See, like this is all in Japanese.
Right.
Incredible. This is so cool, like the fact that they're like, yeah, this tool's not gonna come out.
Still has the hydrant tool on there, probably for spinning the valve off, spinning the cap off a hydrant. Yeah, they're really neat. You're welcome to peek inside, like the original, like all the comms and the buttons and everything for turning on the sirens and that little package on the left side there. Extra gauges that would the water pump pressure.
The canvas is so crude.
Really good shape, all things considered, but yeah, kind of definitely made just to fit the fire truck. I'm sure it was built right on this vehicle. And this one was this is a hose tender, so this one actually didn't hold water, but the entire back of it was reels of hose, so this would have been used to kind of get water from maybe a hydrant all the way up to a service or where they need it out of a pump truck. And so this has got a big pump on the front of it as well.
And this is European.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at this. How crude.
Isn't that cool?
They just cut it out.
I love how they actually Frenched it in there, though.
Yeah.
Right? They kind of like added that in so you could see your water pump
so
pressure,
cool.
your engine pressure, temp gauge.
Like the fact that they actually cared to, versus putting it, I don't
Right,
know.
just burying it somewhere else.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that's another, not a phenomenal condition, all things considered, but that's also a 1960. So you think that's a 63-year-old Land Cruiser fire
Look
truck.
at that. That is incredible. All right, so now we're in the back secret location.
We're hanging out in the secret spot. So this is some of the other Expedition 7 fleet. So this is a newer project taking brand new Heritage Edition 200s, and they're shipped over to Germany where a company called Maltec builds these full camper conversions on the back. So this is a full pop-top camper. It's got a stove, got a fridge, got everything you need to survive and live out of the back, all out of a brand new Land Cruiser chassis.
No way. Wait, so they cut this?
That started its life as a Heritage Edition 200 series, and then they cut the back off and build a full camper.
Why a Heritage Edition? Couldn't they have just used a regular 200
Probably,
series?
but if you're gonna build the best, you start with the best one.
That doesn't, that. Can we open it?
It's probably locked.
Oh.
I could go grab a key though.
No,
and
it's
we
okay.
can come back. Yeah.
I just want to see it. Oh, it's actually really nice inside.
Super tidy. They do a great job. This would be the 76 wagon. So this one came out of South Africa. This is the Sherpa 2 kind of hanging out over there. That one's an Australian spec.
So then, you guys, is this your building too?
Separate building, separate company. Yeah, this is neighbors.
Ah.
Kind of borrowing some of their parking lot.
You've
this weekend for the
invaded some
event.
of their space.
Yeah, they're very nice, very kind. Let's use them.
Whoa, that's the Arctic.
That's the Arctic truck, exactly.
That is so cool.
So those are 44-inch tires. That's
So
a completely purpose-built vehicle for polar travel.
Is this similar to what Clarkson was driving in
Same company, nearly an identical platform. You bet. An AT44 by Arctic Trucks.
Wow.
Yeah. So that one has crossed Antarctica from the South Pole and to the Ross Ice Shelf as part of Expedition 7. And then later on, a few years later, did the first long axis crossing of Greenland. So that vehicle has a lot of cool history built into it.
Those tires though. Whoa, they're actually made by Mickey Thompson.
Dixie Pex by Mickey Thompson, yeah.
It's hilarious to me how small the brakes are.
With that big of a tire.
So is this just built for snow?
Yeah, primarily. You can certainly, they're not, this tire, this package isn't going to lend itself too well to pavement driving, so they're high flotation for that reason, sand and snow, but Arctic Trucks builds them for their snow.
44.
44-inch tire, and you look how wide they are as well, so you just got a lot of flotation. You can air your tires up and down while you drive down the highway as you're moving, not the highway, as you drive over ice and snow, and it comes into play. There were a lot of times where we would bog down in and you'd have to air the tires down to kind of spread out that surface load, get more flotation, get back up on top of the snow and ice, primarily loose snow, and then you would air them back up so that they weren't like contouring too much and moving so much. So it's kind of like a constant game of moving the pressures around.
And I'm surprised that this is not a beadlock.
Yeah, you'd think it's a beadlock because we were running down to 2 and 3 PSI at times, but because of how wide of a tire it is on a narrower wheel, like look at how much, you've got a lot of sidewall grab right there because of how wide the tire is. Yep, so didn't become an issue. And we're also not, it's not like a high horsepower spin, it's not a rock crawling, it's not a super high traction, it's a slow go, slow move. The Lizard King.
Yeah. So you were on the expedition
I
then?
did the Greenland portion with this trip, yep. We took this one and 2 other Arctic trucks to Greenland.
Damn.
So we lived out of these for about 3 weeks doing the crossing, had fuel flown in with a helicopter and a plane, and we towed sleds, and the sled's actually in the other building store, but we usually have it on display, a sled full of fuel bladders. So we towed fuel behind us in a sled over the ice, and we would pump out of those.
And this is diesel?
Diesel, yep.
And did you have to change a spare?
Fortunately, not on the truck. We had to do some tire changing we towed a trailer that also had really big tires. We did have to pull some tires on and off. It's a couple person job to move them. They're heavy.
What a journey.
This is the sister truck to Fernway, the one that's done 7 continents. This one did 6 continents.
So then, like, doing that kind of stuff, the expeditions, is that part of your museum?
That was actually all side stuff. So Greg, the founder of the museum, obviously has a great passion for Land Cruisers, but he has a great passion for using Land Cruisers and going and doing neat adventures with them too. So it's not just about having them here to look at. And though we keep the clean ones clean, there are some that get used, and he's got some in his personal collection that he takes out and uses on a regular basis. His daily driver is a Land Cruiser.
Oh, yes.
As you can imagine.
Yeah. This is just so cool. What's going on with these then? Oh, that's obviously rock crawler.
Yeah, yep, they're just parked outside here to make more room inside the museum for the event here today. Normally they're inside the building. This one's actually for sale, the really colorful one. That's a very purpose-built rock crawler, as you can tell.
Out of all of the ones here, that's the only one for sale.
Technically, yeah, that's the only one being sold off right now, just because it just doesn't get used the way it used to. At one time, that got used a lot, head down to Moab and take it on a lot of trips, but nowadays it's being used less, so need more room in the museum, so Greg made the decision to sell it.
Yeah, so if you guys need a King of the Hammers rig, that's the one.
It's a big machine, for sure.
All right, so we are out here, out back, because obviously the space is being utilized by the new Land Cruiser, but you have a bunch of the 60 series here.
Yeah, so these would normally be inside the building, kind of in their order, but we've got a nice mix of them outside, just some really colorful, cool models that are part of the event we have going on here at the museum, starting with this Colombian spec FJ60. So just a really cool model, kind of different than you'd see in the US, because it's got like ambulance seats in the back, like the side-by-side jump seats.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got the bench seat, and it's truly a bench seat front and second row, and then the jump seat's in the rear. So this thing's made to haul, I'd call it like a 10-person passenger machine if you really got cozy in there.
Yeah, that is.
But just real cool color, really neat platform, split wheels, so it's just got some features you normally wouldn't see.
Love that.
A nice clean 40 series. Beautiful US spec 60 series. This is this green color, mint color one is a really interesting Japan service vehicle. It's kind of a half cab, soft cab model, soft top model, so it's a little of an interesting one. A beautiful FJ62. You may recognize that from some teaser photos recently.
Yeah, this was used in like, I'm assuming the comparison, like ads for the new Land Cruiser.
Some of the teaser, yeah, the teaser photo, they used this one.
Yeah. So then these are all running and driving then, because they all
most of them,
out
a few of them we had to push out here, and they could be made to be running in a little bit of work, but if they didn't fire right up, we just kind of rolled them out. But all of them, yeah, all of them run and drive. The bulk of these ones, at least.
Do you guys rent any of these out for filming?
There have been some that have been used, yeah. We've provided some for off-site events, for different Toyota events, dealer events.
Any Hollywood?
Nothing Hollywood yet. We've used some that have been used in photo shoots, maybe like product photo shoots for outdoor clothing companies, things like that. And so certainly would entertain for a photo shoot of a video.
I mean, because as you guys are able to earn more funds, then that allows you guys to potentially acquire more vehicles.
Absolutely, yeah. The museum does operate as a nonprofit foundation to survive and protect the Land Cruiser heritage. So yeah, anything we can do to improve that would mean more availability to buy additional models.
Yeah.
This JDM one, this is an HJ61, a really cool model. One, because it's so colorful, but it's a 6-cylinder turbo diesel, so it's called the 12HT, manual transmission, sunroof, heated seats, suspension seats, locking differentials. They're cable lockers. So there's actually 2 little levers inside there to pull the lockers on and off next to the driver's seat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really cool model. That velour, the shag carpet's all factory. Just a really cool platform. Factory PTO winch. This is another neat one because 3 wipers. Now This is only on an LX trim 40 series, in this case a BJ42. Has the 3 wipers. It's kind of got a different seat pattern and a bench seat in the back. And this one's a little modified. It's got a suspension system and bigger tires, but really pretty Land Cruiser.
I think you guys need to buy a couple more buildings.
Yeah, well, buy more tickets, buy some swag here. Yeah, rent a Land Cruiser for a video, and we'll work something out for sure.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. If you guys are in Salt Lake City, even if you're in Salt Lake City and you're flying out, or you have a layover for 1 hour.
Yeah, we're 10 to 15 minutes from the airport. We're close.
It's worth it.
You can Uber over here, come visit the museum. It's open Monday through Saturday, normal hours. And I'd love to show you around. It's well worth coming to peek at this.
So people can browse themselves, and you guys can also give tours.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, tours are kind of just depending on availability, but there's QR codes in front of all the vehicles, so you can do a tour, listen to a little bit about them. There's information stands in front of all of them. They're not in them right now outside here, but if you notice inside, there's a nice plaque that tells a story about each vehicle that's in the museum. And normally, when everything's back inside, it's about 100 vehicles.
Does it surprise you to see people come from different corners of the world to come here to check out the vehicles?
I wouldn't say surprised, but maybe impressed by how far people travel. I've met visitors down here from Russia that had a layover in the middle of the night and wanted hey, is there anything we can do to meet you over here? And I'm like, that is so cool. That it's they went out of their way to make a layover in Salt Lake specifically to come visit, and had a time change issue when they were looking at the times, but asked if they could come visit. We've had visitors from Japan, we've had visitors from Europe, we've had visitors from all over the world that make this a stop on a trip. It's pretty impressive. Dedication to get here.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Happy to do it.
This is a long one. Hope you guys made it to the end.
If you stuck with us, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully it's not another 4 years before I can come back. Hopefully I can come and join you guys for one of the events that you guys have here. That would be super cool.
Well, we'd love to have you, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Get here, we'll show you around again.
Awesome.
Okay, good
Perfect.
stuff. Knuckles.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to support us directly, go to LarryChenPrints.com. I print and sign every single one of these. This is the perfect gift, or it's the perfect piece of art for your wall.